Hi,
Hi
Andy.
May, how you doing?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very good. I've just heard that you had no breaks today, so I'm sorry to
No,
hold you guys
oh
even
gosh, no.
longer.
That means that no breaks equals good time because everyone is really enjoying it and lots of questions and stuff like that.
And it's
Um,
been a good morning so far.
Great morning. Great morning. We've had lots of different people, which I think has been interesting. So you are the only music session today, and music
Okay,
is one of our most popular industries. So
great.
you are here, Andy, to share a bit more about your music career,
Yeah.
share advice, share tips. I will hand over to you to kind of
Okay.
introduce yourself.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and good morning to you. So I've got what you would tend to call a portfolio career. So I started off in my youth as a musician, and that was kind of all I ever wanted to do was play in bands. And then as I kind of got towards the HE side of things, I decided I wanted to go back to learn a lot more about music rather than just turning up to gigs and playing. I wanted to actually learn about music theory, about production and so forth. And that led me on a completely different journey away from actually being a musician to being a producer and being a studio engineer. Um, and so for the majority of my adult life, that's kind of where I focused on. But that in itself has kind of brought me back into being involved in education. I work for a company called James, which is the Joint Audio Media Education Support System. And we look at HE courses and we look at how fit they are for people who want to go to university and then progress into the industry. So we make sure that they're aligned with those principles and they make sure that they're offering you not just the education, but the skill set that you need to actually survive and get work in the industry. Um, so I ended up looking for a master's degree at one point, and I went to James. This is before I got involved with them on the work side of things. I went to James to see what they could offer me and what their advice was as to what course to look for. So I took it on board there, and I went to the University at Westminster, which is where I finished my studies. And then just to fast forward a bit, so I began as a musician. I went into engineering and production. I got back into education, and then I furthered my career in production. I got to work with bigger projects and bigger studios and more high profile clients. And then that led me back into live music again because one of my clients decided, would you like to come on the road as my technician? I was like, sure. And it's like, you play guitar, don't you? I was like, I do. Well, can you do the technician side and play guitar as well? I was like, yeah, I can do that. And then what's eventually happened is now I'm not doing the technician side of it. I'm back actually as a performer. And we've just come back after doing a 3 month stint around the UK. In fact, I got back yesterday. So I'm a little
Dream
bit
job.
tired.
No,
But
that sounds amazing. It sounds like you've dabbled in all sorts of different things.
yeah, but I think but going back to the main takeaway from this is that there's no reason that you can't set your path in one direction and feel that there's no issue with transferring over somewhere else. Portfolio career works for a lot of people in this industry, particularly if you're someone that's involved in academia or education. There's still an outreach and then there's an outlet for you to be creative and to be an artist as well as doing the more technical side of things. Sorry, mate,
What?
I jumped in on you. Go on ahead.
No, this is great. No, what is a portfolio career? Just for those who might not know what that is.
So I think there are traditional paradigms that exist within the music industry. You can be an artist, you could be a producer, you could be a sound engineer, specifics, you could be a stage manager, you could be a lighting engineer, etc., etc. But that's carving out your niche as one finite kind of path to take. But what is really, really key to surviving in this modern climate is being adaptable and having a wider skill set. So my portfolio career, although there are different skills within it, it's all within the music industry. But a lot of people they tend to diversify for a much wider audience as well. So you could be an accountant, you could be somebody that works in a local council, you could be an artist, there's no kind of set balance as to what you can contrive and put into one pot.
Mm.
It's kind of what makes you happy and what fulfills you, as opposed to what just makes it work. And you know, if it's not about being financially driven, I think there's a real key to doing things that kind of feed your soul and tick that
Another
box.
speaker mentioned that anything you do will always become a routine. So even if you love your job today, say Andy, you're a guitarist on stage. I mean, that sounds amazing. That sounds like every artist's dream. But I can imagine actually maybe if you do it for long enough, you might want to try something else. And being an engineer working behind the scenes is interesting too.
I think so. I think that's a very, very valid statement, and there's a lot of truth to it. The everything that I do is progressive. So I go into a new project and I try something I've never done before. I think one key thing to remember with music production and in fact being a musician is that every day is a school day, and you never stop learning. Not just in terms of your personal skills and your skill set, but also in terms of the technological demands that are out there. The music production industry is so fast evolving. And particularly now, what you guys have to contend with is the onset of AI and how we kind of incorporate that within our workflow. So going back to your point is that, yeah, it doesn't become mundane because it's always evolving. But having said that, like I say, we just finished a 3 month run, and really it's the same set that you play every day. So the only
Mm,
thing that changes is the audience and how they react with you. And I think live performance is very much it very much depends on what the reaction of the audience is as to how the concert evolves. Because really, if you've been playing the same set for 3 months, you should know how to play it inside out. You should
mm.
be able to. But the joy of it comes from how the audience reacts to you, and that's what you get from it. It's that qualification that they award you by
And
being
I can imagine
responsive.
it's not like Glastonbury every single day. You know, it's different types of audience environments.
It is,
Um,
yeah, yeah, and that's a really important thing as well. I mean, this tour that we've just done is a theatre tour, so you're talking a minimum of 500 people for an audience, and the maximums have been about 2,000. So, but the theatre audience itself is very specific. It's not like a festival, and it's not like a gig where everyone's on their feet and jumping about and so forth. So it's again, every day is different, and that's the beauty of it, I think.
and I love what you're saying about you know, you got to be adaptable and there's so many different changes. But I think sometimes as a young person, it could get all a bit overwhelming to be like,
Yeah,
okay, so there isn't a linear path, there isn't like one or two skills that I need to learn. So if you could try and break it down to where do you start just being curious, learning, like, do you have any kind of advice or actions or steps?
I
What
think I
would be
think I
to go
think
now?
curiosity is the key first aspect. It's like find something that you're interested in. It doesn't need to be something that you're good at, and we need to get past that. It's like if you're that curious, that you're that interested in the subject, you have time to get good at it. And I think if you're in school, or if you're in FE or in HE, that's the time that you can make mistakes. You have a playground to experiment with and to enrich your learning process. I think once you get into the professional world, that's slightly different because you have the financial conventions that you need to look at there. But in terms of when you're at school, just find something you're interested in. And if you see something that looks cool, whether it be music or any of the other arts, etc., just go with it and investigate. There's no punitive measures for getting things wrong when you're starting out in this side of things. For me, it was always a case of follow my nose. And I hate to say it, in my late teens, in my early 20s, my career worked because I always said yes. An opportunity would come up, and even if I didn't know what I had to do inside out, if the opportunity was there, I said yes to it, and I learned as I went. It's
Mm.
kind of it's form follows function. You get these opportunities come through, and I'm not the most confident person in the world. I'll be the first one to say it, but you gain confidence through repetition and through experience, and you're never going to get that experience unless you say yes to it. If the door opens, I would wholeheartedly say just take the opportunity and go through it. But as a caveat, the whole thing with opportunity comes along with a certain degree of preparation and a certain degree of luck. It's the combination there of the both. So I wouldn't necessarily go into something if I had no idea what I was doing. Um, as long as I've prepared myself. So it's like if it's a musical opportunity, then I know that I've spent my 10,000 hours learning my instrument. Or in the case of as a younger musician, maybe my 100 hours or my 1,000 hours. So I know the complete mastery wasn't there, and it still isn't because we're always learning. You could be a great musician, and you'll never have mastered what it is you're working
Yeah,
with. It just doesn't happen that way. But I
no.
find I find for me it's very much also the same situation with the recording studio. A lot of producers and engineers will tell you that the recording studio itself is its own instrument, and I do agree with that. I walk a fine line between a musician and music producer, so I kind of have a hand in both. Um, but with the recording studio, again, it's this wonderful technological development that's only really come into its fore in the last 50 years. And we've seen so much progression in the way that music is recorded, the way it's produced, that there are many people out there who make music these days who don't have any traditional musical skills, but they still produce content or they still produce music that people are into and people love. And it's more about just following your heart, following your passion.
Yeah. And
Um,
for
I
you,
digress. I'm sorry.
no, 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 you don't advise. No, 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 this is all fantastic. And I think for you, because you said all you wanted to do was be an artist, be the musician. And I think I speak to a lot of young people who are the same. They're like, that's my dream right now is to be a musician, an artist. Was it hard to, I guess, make the decision of actually I might not make it as an artist, but
Yes,
I've
yes.
still got a, but I've still got other passions in music, like
I
behind the
don't, I
scenes.
don't think, I don't think it was ever a conscious decision, mate. It wasn't a case of, oh, I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to do something else. It was just following the fluidity of the path took me into production, and I loved it. I loved working with other artists who were in an earlier part of their journey who needed some guidance, and there was something really kind of fulfilling about being able to help people along their way. So it was never a case of me saying to myself, I'm never going to be a musician again or an artist. It was just something else got in the way. And I loved that even more than what I was doing at the time. So it's weird how it's other opportunities and other developments has brought me back full circle to going out and doing what I wanted to do as a teenager. But I'm still in love with doing music production. And if I'm not out on tour, I will be in the studio making music, or I will be working in music education. And I'm very, very keen to make sure that the the students, the children, and in fact, all the lecturers as well that I talk with don't have the same apprehension that I did at that age. That is that you have to be something because it's just not the case. I don't see that as the case. In my opinion, it's
No.
there's so much opportunity out there within the music industry and other creative industries, but there's so much opportunity in there. It's like you go in with one idea about what you should be, but you can't be expected to stick to that singularity. You can't restrain yourself. Just be open to the other opportunities that present yourself because you never know where you'll end up. And there are some fantastic journeys that I've seen people take out there. Many of the people that I've worked with or studied with, they've ended up in these real niche corners of the industry, and they're
Mm.
happy, very happy.
I think you, like you said, you kind of have to go with the flow that you're in and do what you're enjoying now. Like you said, like if it is to continue being an artist, musician, continue with that, but doors will open along the way, and that's when you can grab that opportunity. But you can't kind of connect the dots now.
No,
The dots will appear.
yeah, I think I think it's a very hard task to ask anybody in their teenage years to actually map out their roadmap in front of them in the artistic industries. I can't really comment if somebody wants to be a doctor or if they want to be a surgeon or if they want to be an astrophysicist. There might be more of a formulaic path. I don't know. It's not my area of expertise, but I can say that with the music industry, it's a little bit more fluid.
Yeah.
That said, there are exceptions to the rule. I used to run a music venue in my mid-30s, which was, and we were very much invested in the grassroots side of things. So we'd have open mics on there, we'd have a community choir, and then we'd have touring artists come down to the little village that I lived in. And we'd share their musical experiences with the local community, which was great because there was no music there before. But one exception to that was a girl that I'm sure most of you would have come across of recent times is Lola Young. And she would come down to our open mic nights when she was 14, 15 years old. And there was no mistaking it. At that age, you saw brilliance in her, and there was absolutely no way that she was never going to make it as an artist. And she's one of the biggest exports that we've got at this point in time in the country.
Um,
Huge US tours, huge UK tours. I think at the moment, she's worked hard, so she's taking a bit of a health break at the moment, but she's done exponentially well in the last couple of years. But that's somebody that never deviated from that path of being an artist. That's all she ever wanted to do. And I think she went through a very kind of set route of going to the Brit Academy just outside of Croydon. There she picked up management, there she picked up label interest, and they've just nurtured her talent and gone on through it. So there are ways into it, but I just, from my point of view, it's just keep your options open.
yeah.
But at the same time, I would also say it's like if you know what you want to do, you make sure that you power on and you follow everything within your power to kind of follow that direction and that path.
And how do people who say aren't going down the artist route, want to work in music, passionate about music, how can they get experience? Because we had Sony Music on the other day. One of the biggest record labels, the talent team, they were saying they get thousands and thousands of applications for their internships.
Yeah.
Uh, so record labels are competitive.
Yeah.
How can people actually get experience in the music industry?
For me, I can comment on the recording studio industry and to some degree the label industry as well. I used to I used to have more of an involvement in running recording studios, particularly in the last decade. And one of the things that always kind of got me was when people were looking for experience was persistence. I have to say it's about persistence. And you need to develop a thicker skin, or you at least need to develop the understanding is that sometimes when you apply for these things, the person receiving it can't always give it the due attention that you'd expect. So you might put your heart and soul into that covering letter, and you might do the correct things like research who it is you're addressing it to. Just don't make it generic or general. Think about the label or the studio that you're applying to, the kind of music that they do, what kind of interests they have, what kind of artists they work with. Do your research before you do these applications. But all said and done, you can do these applications and then you might not get response. Don't take it personally.
Mm.
Everybody is busy in this industry, and it might just be that they have not had time to see it, or in the time that it's taken for them to open their inbox, another 50, 60 emails has come through, and that takes priority over it. So if you've not heard anything within a week, follow up. And again, another week follow up. One of the best cases I ever had was a young guy came from Greece to work in the UK, and he badgered me week in, week out, and he wasn't the best fit for the job, but I gave him the opportunity, and he soon proved that he really was the best guy for the job because of his persistence, because of his personal skills. And given a couple of weeks to kind of sit into the role, it was actually very apparent that his technical skills were excellent. It was just it didn't come across in the introduction that he made. So I think persistence is key. There was a friend of mine who recently did a vox pop for some research that I was doing. A vox pop is when people do like a talking heads video, for anybody that's not familiar with that term. And he's a singer-songwriter, and he's recently gained a lot of interest in UK and Europe. And for him, his key piece of advice was that it is about persistence, because if you stay in this game for long enough, something positive will happen. There's far too many people that will give up because it's so hard. But really, keep on knocking on doors, because it's not just about the door, the people behind the doors, because they change. It's like you can go to Sony, you can go to BMG, but in a year's time, it might be somebody else that's different that's answering that door. So be persistent and be continuous about it. And
Mm.
really, I think what a lot of people get lost with in this day and age is that, yes, we have the advantage of electronic communications, but really, if you can get out to events, go to seminars, go to Music Producers Guild events, go to UK music events, go to MPG, MMF, all these kind of associations that we see within the music industry. They have events for people who are starting out, and it's a chance to network and to socialize. And I understand that that is scary to some people as well. It's like going into a room and trying to present yourself. And my key piece of advice with that is don't push it unless you have to. Just even if you make one connection with one person who's in the same position as you are, is that they're very scared going into this and they need someone to talk to. That communication, that conversation that you have will be worth its weight in gold. And it might be 5 or 10 years down the line that you'll bump into that person again and they're doing something of interest to you, or you can help each other out. But it's really about developing the communication face to
Mm.
face.
Yeah. Networking is unfortunately the it is so important. And I was so scared going to these events. They are
Yeah,
scary, and
yeah.
you are walking in and you don't know what to say and it's awkward. But once you do it a couple of times, it does get a lot easier. Um, and you realize how small the creative industry is
Absolutely.
in the UK.
Absolutely.
You come
That
across
that
people
it's
all the
quite
time.
surprising, isn't it? You think
It
there's
is
thousands
really
and
surprising.
thousands of people going into it. Yeah, and it's that continuity of it. You're right, mate. I think it's like a performance. This was one thing that a bit of advice that gave to me, and I'll disseminate this again. Think of somebody like Beyonce Knowles. When she goes on stage, she doesn't go on as Beyonce Knowles. She has this alter ego that she adapts called Sasha Fierce, I think it is.
Mm.
And that's who's on stage. That's the person that's on stage. And I think over time you become that person. So it's easier to do it. You don't need to switch your psyche to do so. But I used to find that with going into these mixes or these social events, it's like I need to stop being timid about this. Because I have a right to be here like everybody else does. Your social skills need a bit of work. And I think the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. And then all of a sudden it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's like this is like hanging out with mates you haven't met. And that's where you
Mm,
want to be.
mm,
And that will present opportunities to everybody as they proceed through this career. I see a lot of people, particularly in the label industry, there's a lot of people that will move from company to company. And it's no bad thing that they don't stay somewhere for longer than 6 months to a year because if anything, it helps to build on their experience. But these opportunities arise from just getting to know people within the network. I mean, obviously, your skill set that you've got prior to that is really essential. And if you do study at HE, then you have an opportunity to enlighten yourself and enrich your actual kind of your skill set, which you take into the workforce. But um, there's a lot to be said for social credit and what you can actually achieve just being in the room with people.
yeah. And would
Mate,
you say your kind of, I guess, last question is, I think everyone's just a little bit scared, worried. AI is coming in, there's not many jobs for young people. The creative industry is slowing down or whatever it is. Um, what kind of positive message would you have for people today from the music industry? Because actually, is there loads of opportunities coming because of AI technology? Or yeah, what are you seeing in terms of the future of the music industry?
um, I'll come back to that in 1 second. I just will say with a caveat, at the moment, the music industry is very much in a grey area as to where it stands in regard to legislation with AI. So a lot of the major companies are kind of keeping it at arm's length. Um, And we will see in the coming months or weeks, in fact, where the government sits in relation to AI and its contribution and its remuneration to creators. Because this is the big summary of it, is basically for AI to work and create music, it needs to have a source, and that source content is currently the existing pedagogy or the existing encyclopedia of music that's already out there in the world. So the issue that we're having at this point in time is to make sure that the people who wrote these original songs that AI is taking its source from are fairly remunerated, sorry. But we're in a bit of development there. What I will say is with AI, in the same context that we had with ChatGPT and Claude when it came across, is that if you know how to use the tools, you're one step ahead of the game. Now, I'm not saying that any of these tools will replace the need for humans to actually work them, because I find in music you've got platforms such as Suno, and to develop something which is usable, you still need to have knowledge of how the product works. So it's not that we're being replaced anyway, but I think what we need to be aware of is that there are tools on the market now, or tools that are coming into being, that we need to be open-minded into how we put them into operation and how we use them. I think live music will never go away, and I can't see how AI will replace that. The ABBA Voyager thing that's happening in London at the moment, I've seen that raised as an example, but I think that's a bit of a stretch to call that AI. That's a really well programmed event that they've got going on there, which uses computer technology to produce avatars. But as far as AI going for replacing the creative industries, I don't see that happening. But we need to adapt and we need to be aware of what's happening. Um,
Mm.
and I think it's the smart users that are going to get ahead of it by understanding how the tools work and putting them to use, as opposed to replacing us.
Love that.
Um,
Again,
Mate, I'm
curious.
so sorry. I had a slideshow. We haven't touched it at all.
I know, no, don't worry about it. No, well, this has been fantastic, Andy. Thank
Yeah,
you so much. We'll have to get you back to do the presentation, the slideshows another time.
anytime, anytime. Is there
Um,
any questions from anybody at all?
yeah, I don't know if there are any questions. Do let us know. But if not, I'm sure Andy won't mind sharing. Well, I can share your website, LinkedIn, those kind of things,
Sure. Yeah, hit me up on email. That's no problem at all. Or LinkedIn, whichever is
or
easier.
LinkedIn. Okay,
Yeah,
brilliant. Well, we will share those details with everyone. But thank you so much, Andy. So
you're
nice to
very
meet
welcome.
you.
Lovely to meet
Um,
you, mate.
Lovely to meet you, and have a fantastic rest of your week.
Thank you.